Hi, our presentation is over our group project that we replicated from a single subject research study. And the study was decreasing excessive media usage while increasing physical activity. Our group members were myself, Cortland, Heather, and Lloydia. And we are all from different areas throughout the US, so this definitely put some limitations on our project and made it interesting to all work together through text and Google Hangouts, emails, and Blackboard posts. But it was a fun time. So to begin discussing our project.
Okay. Obesity is defined by having excess body weight and body fat and occurs to an imbalance in the calories consumed versus the calories expended. It's become a national epidemic in the United States, and according to the Centers for Disease Control, over 30% of American children, adolescents, and adults are obese, with prevalence rates tripling from 1980 to 2002. The Kaiser Family Foundation found that children and teens are using around 6.5 hours of non-school related media each day. The American Academy of Pediatrics theorized that there is a significant negative correlation between television watch and obesity, although research has had conflicting results. A study by Lowry et al. 2002 found a negative correlation between television and obesity, whereas results from Proctor et al. 2003 were not significant. Regardless, engaging in frequent exercise can help reduce the risk of obesity, though today's youth spend a majority of their time on the internet, phone, video games, and watching TV, while engaging into little to no physical activity. Several studies have shown that making media usage contingent on exercise can reduce the time spent using media and increase physical activity. Larwin and Larwin demonstrated that making access to the phone and internet a reinforcing consequence for physical activity resulted in a significant increase in physical activity and a decrease in media usage. The current study replicated Larwin and Larwin by targeting the increase in physical activity by making access to non-school or work-related media contingent on miles walked each day for 4 college graduate level students. Each student acted as the researcher, participant, and reliability partner for IOA data. Individuals recorded and graphed their own data and collaborated as a group to review and present the research. Okay.
Is it my turn? Okay, just checking. All right, and my name is once again Lloydia Jackson, and I'm just going to go through the behavioral definition, our data collection method, as well as settings, materials, and participants. So just to give you the overall behavioral definition, we define that as increasing physical activity in the form of miles walked while decreasing media usage. Physical activity will be defined as walking on a treadmill at an incline of 7 while increasing miles walked through each phase of the study. And there were 3 phases. We had our baseline phase, our intervention phase 1, and intervention phase 2. Media usage will be defined as any recreational media usage that requires you to be on social media or your phone, and that includes Facebook, Instagram, texting, etc., or internet, which includes searching the web or online shopping for more than 1 minute consistently. Non-examples of media usage will be being engaged with work calls, text, or emails, being engaged in schoolwork that may require internet usage, such as Blackboard, emails, YouTube videos, such as this one, and listening to music during physical activity. As far as data collection is concerned, our study did not offer a direct explanation as to how they collected data for the single subject. In our case, we decided to use a data sheet that has all the necessary components included to record. This data sheet could be written with pencil or paper, or it could be tracked electronically, as it was up to each participant's discretion. The components that will be tracked throughout the phases will be the date, the number of miles walked, the speed of walking or miles per hour, and moving on to settings. Each member of our group lived in a different area of the United States with different living situation, familiar relationships, so the settings did vary, and that did contribute to a widespread difference in the completion of the study for each participant. Each member was ultimately in charge of their own aspects of the project. The main settings that I noted would be the gym, home, or any other place where internet, phone, or social media usage could be tracked. The materials for this project were the data tracking sheets, your phone, computer, and treadmill. As far as the participants are concerned, in the article that we decided to replicate, the participant was a single subject, 14-year-old adolescent female. She had been recommended to pursue an activity that would increase her engagement in physical activity as a method to help her cope with boredom and her discontent with her own physical fitness. She had a counselor which referred her to a researcher to help her design and implement the behavior change program. Her height and weight was measured at the onset of the study. The participant mentioned that she did not particularly like physical fitness. I mean, I don't think anyone does, but she did enjoy spending time on the phone and the internet using social media sites. Since the chosen study is a single case study design, each member of our group served as a participant. And once again, the members of our group is Cortland Scott, Heather Hullum, and Abigail Smith, and myself, Lloydia Jackson. The participants in our study were ourselves, and in order to replicate it as much as possible to the article study, we each partnered with someone in our group to serve as our research assistant, and then we chose someone within our close proximity, such as a roommate, significant other, or family member, to serve as our coach. Now, I'm just going to briefly go through the apparatus as was described in the article. In the article, the 14-year-old adolescent female used a Bowflex treadmill climber. The model number was T like Tom, C like Charlie 5000. This model is a hybrid of a treadmill and a stair climber. And the article noted that it did have 2 revolving belts that had the ability to move up and down in a step and motion, which the participant could walk on. Now, this treadmill climber did record the linear distance, vertical height climbed, speed, resistance, heart rate, and total calories burned. The participant in the article only chose to use it in this treadmill option only, because you can do either treadmill or stair climber. The participant in the article also recorded her body mass complex once every 3 days using a Tanita BC533 inner scan body composition monitor, which measured her weight in pounds, muscle mass, and water mass, and her body mass complex in pounds versus inches squared. Now, this was a suggestion made by her counselor just in case she fixated on her obsessive weight fluctuations, and that just helped to describe why that maybe was happening. In order to replicate the study on our case, we all decided to use a treadmill that had the ability to monitor the vertical height climbed, speed resistance, heart rate, and total calories burned. And the chosen treadmill also had the ability to allow each user to select the incline. As far as treatment fidelity is concerned, to ensure that each member of the group was adhering to the rules of the behavior change program, that member was required to take a picture using their mobile phone of the treadmill after they had completed their miles. And that picture had to show the time, the miles per hour, the speed, incline, and distance. And this was just to ensure that each member was actually completing the physical portion of the work. As far as inter-observer agreement is concerned, or IOA, once again, this article did not explicitly discuss how they decided to do IOA, but as a group, we decided to use the total IOA formula, and we were required to review each partner's data sheets used and compare them to the pictures to determine that IOA. The formula for total count IOA is smaller count divided by a larger count times 100. For example, if a participant wrote that she completed 1.5 miles on the treadmill, but her picture only showed 1.47 miles, then the reliability collector, who was your research assistant, would note the difference in their equation, about a 98% difference. I do have a figure here that I want to show. Let me just here, share my screen. Okay, so here's an example of our IOA collection data, and I'm using Cortland and Abby's. As you can note here, the date that all of this was determined was on November 2nd. At least that's when Abby went and looked at Cortland's data. Cortland reported that she didn't do any physical activity during the baseline phase, which there really wasn't a requirement to do any, so that's completely fine. So as you notice, their IOA percentage is 100 because 0 divided by 0 times 100 is going to be 0. So that's 100% agreement. But on October 10th, you can note here that she did 1.01 miles. At least that's what Cortland reported. But her picture only showed 1.0 miles. So they're at 99%. And I just wanted to give you an idea of what that was. I'm just going to stop sharing here. And now we're moving on to Abby.
Great. So the procedures of this project was, as Lloyd described, each participant was assigned a research assistant, and the research assistant ended up being one of the participants in the group. So for example, myself, I was matched up with Cortland, and then Heather was matched up with Lloydia. And we also appointed, like Lloydia said, our own coach, and this coach ended up usually being someone that lived in the home with us, just so that they could motivate us to continue with the replication study. The coach was also there to help give the reward and allow us to use our media and internet usage. So the target behavior was working on expanding our miles walked on the treadmill. And the primary goal of this study was to increase the number of miles walked during the study. The duration of the study was 4 weeks long. The baseline was 1 week, where we all recorded 5 data points. The treatment phase 1 was also 1 week, and treatment phase 2 was 10 days. So prior to the baseline stage, participants all collected data on a uniform data collection sheet. Again, that was created by one of the participants in the study. This form allowed us to record the date, the miles walked, the speed, and if stretches were performed. It was recommended by the study, and we replicated ourselves as well, to do stretches before each session to prevent any injury. If the stretches were conducted before the activity, we would just make a note of it on our data collection sheet. We also recorded our internet and media time. Although it wasn't tracked to see an increase or decrease, we did make note of it through the baseline just to see where everyone started with their internet and media usage, and then recorded to make sure that the rewards given were appropriate to the amount of miles that were walked. All of this data collected was to be reported to the research assistant, and we did this through our pictures in the discussion board. The research assistant and the participant also were in frequent communication through text throughout the week. The participant made sure in the baseline stage to record their activity on the treadmill and the usage of technology. During the baseline stage, there was no requirement of how much they were supposed to walk or how much technology and media usage they were allowed. So for example, Cortland and I both did 0 during the baseline stage, and you could have seen that there in Lloydia's IOA. The participant had full control on their speed on the treadmill, the incline, anything during the baseline stage, just to see where all the participants started. The incline for our participants in treatment phase 1 and treatment phase 2 was at 7, and this was across the board for all participants to use. They were allowed to adjust their speed, however, to their comfortability. Recording the session started as soon as the participant got on the treadmill, started it. As soon as they stopped, they would record their data, and that would be the completion of 1 session. Rewards and reinforcement were implemented that evening. So the participant would have to complete the exercise on the treadmill before they would receive the reward. And in this case, it was technology and media usage. For treatment phase 1, participants received 1 hour of technology and media usage for every mile walked. For the second phase, participants received 1.5 hours of media and internet usage for every 1.5 miles walked. They also had the opportunity to earn an extra half hour of media usage and technology for every additional half mile walked during each session. During treatment phase 1, they had to at least walk 1 mile to receive the reward of 1 hour of media and technology usage. And during treatment phase 2, they had to at least walk 1.5 miles to receive the reward of 1.5 hours of media and technology usage. Participants were asked to record each session on the data collection sheet as well as their technology use. This way, their research assistant and their coach would be able to see that they were giving the correct award and allotting the correct amount of media usage and technology that correlated with how many miles were walked on the treadmill. So again, the goal for this study was to increase the target behavior, which was walking on the treadmill, and increase the amount of miles. But there was also another level of reward in addition to the media and technology. So again, for every mile walked, they would receive an hour of technology. But in addition to that, they would also hopefully, as the study address, kind of increase their motivation to continue to exercise and increase their health. And this worked for us. I mean, a lot of us talked together and said that we were happy to be back in a routine. So for us, considering our age in the study, that second level of reinforcement worked much better. So the results of our study through all different phases, that during treatment phase 1 and treatment phase 2, all participants collected the correct amount of data. They walked for 5 out of 7 days in week 1, and they collected 10 sessions for treatment phase 2. All participants increased their miles walked in treatment phase 1 to treatment phase 2. 2 out of the 4 participants were not using the treadmill at all consistently during the baseline period. And the other 2 participants, as can see in our graphs later, used the treadmill, but inconsistently and with random speeds and distances. During treatment phase 1, all participants but 1 were able to meet the requirement of 1 mile per session. The speed during treatment phase 1 between participants varied from 2.4 to 3.3 miles per hour. The participants all increased their days of consistent exercise from baseline to treatment phase 1. Participants, again, all exercised 5 out of 7 days for the baseline. Results for treatment phase 2 showed that all participants again increased their frequency of exercise as well as their speed and distance. Again, all but 1 participant met the requirements of at least 1.5 miles walked for treatment phase 2. The average speed across participants in treatment phase 2 varied from 2.38 miles per hour to 3.5 miles per hour. This is an increase from the average speed from treatment phase 1. All participants exercised on the treadmill for all 10 days of the treatment phase. Although media usage was used as reward and not as a target behavior, we did track that on our data collection sheet. So participants decreased their internet usage from the baseline phase. Participants did not go over the amount rewarded by how much they exercised. Although media and internet usage did not decrease across participants from treatment phase 1 to treatment phase 2, it actually increased, which is different from the original study. The girls' media usage did decrease. On some days, participants used less media and internet, but as a whole, usage in treatment phase 2 decreased from treatment phase 1 in the study. And I'm going to pass it off to Cortland to talk about our graphs.
Hi, so as Abby mentioned, the media usage was combined as we did not differentiate between phone and computer, but we did differentiate between internet and media. So within the table that Abby mentioned, so I have this to show there was no graph in our project, but there was a table included. So the first one is my table, and you can see the results there. So baseline, it was 184 minutes. Phase 1, it was 61 minutes. And phase 2, it was 74 minutes. So it did decrease during baseline, but not in the phases, as Abby has mentioned. Abby's was 58 minutes during baseline, 49 minutes during phase 1, and 44 minutes during phase 2. So hers did consistently decrease. Lloydia's, her baseline was 175 minutes, 60 minutes for phase 1 and 90 minutes for phase 2. So same as mine, decreased from baseline but increased into phase 2. And Heather's also mirrored Lloydia's and I's. Baseline was 166 minutes, phase 1 was 52 minutes, and then phase 2 was 58 minutes, which is all shown on this table. So it is evident that this study did increase all members' physical activity. When this project began, we discussed that we were not physically active, but we would love to increase that. So we all felt as we could have had a better reinforcement to be contingent on our increased exercise though. As a group, we did not feel as if the media usage was what motivated us or held us accountable for exercising. For us, the main motivator was simply our grade in the course and on this project. This seemed to be enough to motivate us to follow the regimen laid out by the study that we were replicating. Even though we weren't motivated solely by the media usage, the project did motivate one member to purchase a gym membership. It motivated another member to increase exercise while being pregnant to assist in a healthier life, and motivated another member to continue exercising even after the project had ended. So when analyzing our results to the original study, there were some differences. Whereas the 14-year-old adolescent increased miles walked rapidly and way beyond the target goal, especially in phase 2, to be able to receive more time on the phone and internet, we met the goal of needing to walk 1.5 miles and consistently stuck with the minimum number needed. The 14-year-old adolescent also increased her speed regarding the miles per hour walked throughout the phases, whereas our group did not reach the speed that she did, age playing a major role in the differences within our results. The original study was able to track body mass composition, as Lloydia has mentioned earlier, throughout baseline in the phases. We were unable to measure body mass composition as none of us had access to the kind of equipment that the original study did have. And while we all had a coach and a research assistant to help motivate us and hold us accountable, it's safe to say that the majority of the completion was due to self-motivation. If this project was to be done again just for recreational purposes, we would have all had to change the reinforcement received after completing miles walked. If it wasn't for receiving a grade upon the replication, I'm not sure any of us would have been motivated completely to replicate the study due to our media usage not being as big of a motivating factor for us. To talk about our data sheet that we tracked, I'm going to try to share my screen so that you can see. This was the data sheet that we tracked on, just for an example. So we were able to mark the miles walked, the speed on the treadmill, if we did or did not do stretches, and then the time spent on media usage. So just a quick example there. I will go ahead and show my graph, and then we will go so that you can see everyone else's graphs. So this is my miles walked on the treadmill at top and speed of the treadmill on bottom. My baseline, I did nothing. I did not exercise, and I used my phone as much as I wanted. For intervention phase 1, I consistently walked 1 mile, and for the speed on intervention phase 1, I stuck between 3 and 3.5 consistently. For intervention phase 2 on miles walked, it was consistently between 1.5 until about the 7th data point. I jumped about to 1.7 to 2 average. My speed was really kind of all over the place in intervention phase 2. I went between 3 being an average to then up to 4 and to back down to 3. So right around 3.5 was the average speed. So next I will have Heather show her graphs so that you can see it.
Okay, so here is my graph for overall miles walked. As you can see, during baseline, I did not walk for 2 out of 5 data points, and then I only got over a mile for 1 data point. During treatment phase 1, it's inconsistent. I walked a little bit, but I got over 1 mile for every data point except for 1. My average for baseline was 0.4 miles walked at a rate of 0.7 miles per hour. And then for treatment phase 1, it was 1.8 at a speed of 2.5 miles per hour, which is still an increase, so it's good for me. Then during treatment phase 2, my average was 2 miles walked per day at a speed of 3.5 miles per hour. So for me, at that point, it was motivating to run faster to get it out of the way. And overall, this project increased my physical activity because I never go to the gym and I never actually go on walks. So here is my speed graph. And then my daily recreational media use. So there's a huge decrease there. Okay, and I will give it over to Lloydia.
Okay, so I am the pregnant person in this group, and I definitely need to be walking. But as Cortland mentioned, I did not. For me, getting more social media time was not a motivating factor to keep walking, as was getting a good grade on this group project and not being the weak link in our group. So I'm trying to open my graph here. On this graph, let me just share my screen. Start there. Share. Okay, so on this graph, I combined both miles walked and media usage. Here are the days. So from October 3rd all the way to October 29th, as far as baseline is concerned, I did attempt to walk every day of baseline. And as far as actually the walking amount of miles that I did, that varied between, well, I didn't walk every day. I tried to, so I did 4 out of 5 days. It varied between 1 to 2 miles. So depending on the day I was having during the baseline phase or how I was feeling, I would go and take a walk on the treadmill. And my speed during that time ranged between 0 miles, of course, all the way to 2.7. Because for me, the faster I walked, the harder I was breathing. And being pregnant, I have to keep my heart rate to 145 or less. So I found that anytime I tried to go over 2.7, especially if I had had a meal earlier, even if it was a light one, my heart rate would jump a little bit too high. So I'd always slow down. As far as my intervention phase 1 is concerned, I literally did just enough to complete what was needed, except on the 5th day of the intervention phase 1. So that day I used 90 minutes of internet time. I walked 2 miles for that at a speed of 2.2. And on my graph here, this line from 0 to 10 that's the miles I've actually walked. And you'll notice on that day, excuse me, let's see here. On that day, I walked just slightly more. Like it's so slight, the line doesn't even, you can barely tell. But as far as what I was using on my intervention, let's see, my graph is wrong. When I was using my intervention, I didn't go past that. For intervention phase 2, I literally walked 1.5 miles per day to use 90 minutes of the internet or phone time and would not go over. Because for me, getting more time on my phone or more social media time or internet shopping time, which I don't need and my wallet didn't need, was not a motivating factor for me. I just wanted to complete my 10 data points and not die. As far as my speed during intervention phase 2, it ranged between 0 to 3. On the 25th, I actually got up to 3 miles per hour. But at the same time, and I actually walked 3 miles, but at the same time, I think I was just having a better day that day. It just honestly depends on how I felt. And if you've ever been pregnant, it's day by day fatigue. So I hope my graph and everything, because I tried to combine it all in one, I hope that explains how I did on this study. I did enjoy it, and going forward, I will continue walking, but I'm gonna have to find a better reinforcer than media usage because it just did not motivate me enough to want to do it. Like if my fiance wasn't here to remind me to do it, I probably would have forgotten a couple days in a row. But I'm going to go ahead and pass that over to Heather. Well, excuse me, Abby. Sorry.
Okay, so just like Lloyd described, it was not motivating for me at all to use my phone. Again, I think for us it varied. One, the underlying reward of like getting more in shape and getting under routine was more for me, and getting an A in the class. So for me, this is my graph for miles walked. Oh, mine's backwards. But this is my graph for miles walked. So on my baseline, I did nothing, which is normal for me to not usually work out. So I didn't really change my behavior, and I used the internet and media as much as I wanted to. For intervention phase 1, I did the bare minimum. So 1 mile had to be walked, so I walked 1 mile every single day, and that's kind of how I kept it. By intervention phase 2, I kind of came into more of a routine. But again, I pretty much just did the bare minimum every day, 1.5. Then on the weekend of that intervention phase, I did get up to 2 and 2.5 miles. But as a whole, I just stayed with whatever the minimum was. Again, it wasn't really motivating for me to use my phone or go on the internet, so I wasn't really interested in kind of going above and beyond. Those days where I did a little bit more was just because it was the weekend and I had more time, and I had kind of gotten into the routine of working out and going to the gym again. For my speed, as you can see, of course, in the baseline, I did nothing. For intervention phase 1, I kept it at 2.8 every day. That's what I did. And for intervention phase 2, I started 2.8 and did 3.0 for the rest of that intervention phase. Again, I was kind of just doing the bare minimum to get it done for the replication for the project. My speed did increase between phase to phase, but I wouldn't say that it was overall motivating to get on the phone, etc.
All right, well, that concludes our presentation of our study, decreasing social media usage while increasing physical activity. So I hope you enjoyed. Thank you.